Before we dive into the show, if you're looking to make some picks on all your favorite sports this spring, you've got to check out Underdog Fantasy's Pick'em game. You just choose higher or lower between 2 to 8 players, and you can win up to 1,000 times your entry. If you click the link down below in the description and use our code RULE, that's RULE, RULE, you'll get up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free pick. On today's episode of The Unwritten Rule, this is actually the last you'll see of me, just the Payton and Kenny show this week, or at least this show, but nevertheless, still a great one for you guys. Tons to cover. They obviously did a deep dive on the South Carolina win for Mizzou, talked about the Tigers bench and kind of their big impact, what it could mean potentially for them in March and how big that's going to be. Also a bunch of double bye talk, SEC tournament talk. Obviously, that's coming up. Where could Mizzou end up finishing in that top 4 race, racing for a double bye? They, kind of dove into that as well, and then previewed the Vanderbilt game. Tough one for Mizzou going to Nashville to try and win that game. So great preview and men's hoops talk, and then had some women's basketball talk as well with, of course, the news that Robin Pingeton is stepping down at the end of the season. Obviously not a total shocker, but nevertheless, it now means we're in coach search mode here on the women's basketball front. So we'll have obviously plenty to talk about that going forward, but Payton and Kenny kind of gave their preliminary thoughts there. With Robin stepping it down, and then had some quick hits, talked a little Anthony Robinson NBA draft stuff, nothing too scary, and some spring football changes for Mizzou on that front. So great show. Obviously, Kenny and Payton soloing it or duoing it, if you will, but hope you enjoy anyway, and we'll get right into it without further ado. The Unwritten Rule starts right now.
Marcel, where are you going with that disc? You are not putting that on again. Marcel, okay, if you press that button, you are in very, very big trouble.
Attention. Everybody stop what you're doing. It's time for The Unwritten Rule, a Mizzou sports podcast brought to you by the Believe Network, alongside Peyton Haverman and Kenny Van Doren. Here is your host, Jack Knowlton.
Welcome back to The Unwritten Rule. As Jack mentioned in the intro, it's just Peyton and I for this show. He's enjoying some time off to end his week, and just me and Peyton. But it's Friday, February 28th, the last day of February. Sorry to those were born on a leap year, because you won't get to celebrate your birthday this year, but you can celebrate it by listening to The Unwritten Rule or watching The Unwritten Rule on YouTube. So just Peyton and I today, and we're going to hit it off pretty quickly here, just with the Mizzou win over South Carolina, 101-71, or midweek game on that Tuesday. Mizzou just handles business, and we're not going to talk too much about this game, bore you about just a pretty manhandling win for the Tigers. But just right off the bat, Peyton, I mean, everything looked good for Mizzou in this one. It came at the perfect time. You expected to beat Arkansas if you were a Missouri fan, if you were part of that Mizzou team, but coming back home after that Arkansas loss, this was just a perfect time to run into a team that just struggled all year, and it's off of a high of winning their first SEC game the Saturday before. So just initial thoughts, Peyton, just quick hitters. I mean, what went right for Mizzou?
I mean, everything. I mean, you kind of touched on it there. Just South Carolina was totally outmatched in this one. They have a really great player in Collie Murray Boyles. He was excellent in this game, 7 for 7 from the line, 10 for 11 from the field. He's going to be a lottery pick. Mizzou seemed content to let him get his and nobody else get anything else. I mean, Mizzou was like playing for highlight reels at times, it felt like. I mean, truly, like, Tamar Bates had 2 absolutely vicious dunks. I mean, it was a dunk palooza out there. I mean, Caleb Grill, that was an excellent bounce back game for him. 9 for 11, 4 for 6 from deep after really, really struggling against Arkansas. The Arkansas one was a disappointment, but this team has shown a lot this year that they know how to respond to some big losses. They've only lost back-to-back games once this year, and they responded really well from that. Had a disappointing effort against Arkansas. Left no doubt in this one. Second straight game getting over 100 at home. And man, I mean, you look at just the defense taking a step forward outside of Boyles. It was truly, truly terrible for South Carolina. 9% on 3 balls. So just a mismatch. I mean, South Carolina, especially once they got their one SEC win. I was pretty confident this one was not going to be in doubt. I said on the preview, I just wanted to see a 20-point win. Missouri went ahead and won by 30. So no complaints for me. I thought everyone did something really well in this game. We got to see Jeremy Sanchez. Just a very, very nice nice effort in your penultimate home game this season.
Students calling for Jeremy Sanchez to get in that one late. I think he took a free throw in addition to that field
because,
goal. He missed it.
South Carolina, that Conyers guy, 21, had a very it was a frustration foul. I think he heard all the students going crazy when Sanchez had the ball and fouled him pretty hard at half court.
Mm-hmm. And Anwar Boateng got in this one as well. And I don't think I have bad hearing, but I did hear the students calling for Anwar Boateng to get in this one as well. And he was a guy that was starting games at the beginning of the year, but still a little raw, still getting into the SEC flow of things. One guy I just want to mention about this game, and he didn't really do much. He scored 2 points, played 10 minutes. But that's Marquez Warwick, Payton. I remember like halfway through the SEC play, I said to you guys and some of the other guys that watched this basketball team, is Marquez Warwick done? He was really good at the beginning of SEC play, albeit it was a game that got manhandled. But he scored 19 against Auburn and then 12 against LSU. And then really just kind of slipped away there for 3 games. Florida, he played 2 minutes. Arkansas, he played 2 minutes. That Florida game you can point to keeping the hottest guys on the floor because you're really cruising, or not cruising, but you're holding a lead against Florida. But then really kind of step back into more of a, consistent role, 11 minutes against Mississippi State, 10 against Tennessee, 20 against Texas A&M, and 15 to 5-2, 19-10. So, playing a lot more minutes later into SEC play, he didn't score a lot in this one. He was kind of, efficient and helpful in that Arkansas game, especially in the first half, even though they came away with a loss. But in your mind, can you just talk a little bit just about this bench and, just how deep it can be? And there are still guys on this team that might not be scoring a lot like Marcus Warwick did in this game. But when you look down maybe into the SEC tournament, maybe there is a guy that can give you a spark that's not just Jacob Cruz or Caleb Grill.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what this season has been for Mizzou. It wasn't really in this one, but Warwick was maybe their best player against Arkansas. He was really the only one that was making kind of consistent tough shots for an entire 40 minutes. Grill was not hitting shots. Cruz was erased in the second half, but that's just kind of what the beauty of like how Dennis has constructed this roster. Last year when there was just a lot of, let's be quite honest, bad players, it would get kind of frustrating just seeing the mass subs. Even in year one when they were winning, you'd get a lot of times where you'd question some of the subs. I don't really do that anymore with Dennis Gates. There's times where he'll throw in a T.O. Barrett or Marcus Allen set of minutes, and I'm like, I don't really think I need to see that right now. But really, it's kind of like you said, like pretty much anyone is capable of coming off the bench and giving them a spark. And obviously, Caleb Grill, you're relying on to be not just a spark off the bench, but one of your best players. But at times it has been Marquez Warwick. Someone who really, I think, has elevated the ceiling of this team is Jacob Cruz, because he is really, I think all of us on the show were like kind of ready for him to be out of the rotation, but he has really found a groove over the last few weeks, offensively in particular. I think he's honestly worked his way into being not like a great defender, but he at least uses his size and makes himself like tougher to score over. So, I think obviously the bench is a big thing for Dennis Gates, and it's been a strength for them all year. When you play as many bench minutes as you do, you're naturally going to outscore teams' benches, but the sheer magnitude of how Mizzou does it at times is pretty eye-popping.
It's definitely going to be a strength getting late into, if you're pushing for late into the tournament and even just the NCAA tournament, that bench is going to carry you. But yeah, the Tigers pick up their 10th win in SEC play. This is the first time ever that a team that went undefeated or didn't win a single game the year before in SEC play. Yeah, sorry. Unwinnited. Is that the correct word, Payton?
Yeah,
but a team that didn't win a single game in 2023 wins 10 the next year. That's the first time that's ever happened just in conference play for the SEC. But looking ahead now, Payton, in pursuit of that double bye, a team that's, not just really caring about making the NCAA tournament or, winning a game in the SEC tournament. Now there's like an opportunity to make it pretty far in both of those. In your pursuit of a double bye, in the SEC tournament comes this weekend. You have to continue to keep those alive. And just starting with the game against Vanderbilt, Payton, just walk us through how important this game is.
Well, Vanderbilt was maybe the Missouri fans' second favorite team for the midweek games because they were able to pull off an upset at College Station, knock off A&M. That makes Mizzou's path to the double bye in the SEC, which I think everyone should really, really, really be clamoring for, that much easier. It now puts them a game clear of A&M. And the way the tiebreakers work the rest of the way, or the way the matchups work and everything, Missouri, if they go 3-0, if they beat Vanderbilt, beat Oklahoma, beat Kentucky, they are going to get at least the 4 seed because Alabama, Florida play each other. Alabama, Tennessee play each other. Auburn plays a bunch of these teams. The way the math works is that if Missouri goes 3-0, they are guaranteed the double bye. Now, obviously, you can't look at too far ahead right now. You got to handle each game in front of you. And Vanderbilt, at Vanderbilt in particular, to me, that this is the trickiest game left because Vanderbilt, like I said, I don't know why they were even a bubble team going into the A&M game. To me, this is a rock solid NCAA tournament team. They gave Missouri a real tough game at Mizzou Arena the first time around, and Mizzou Arena has been borderline I thought Vanderbilt played better than teams like Alabama, Kansas, just those caliber teams. I thought Vanderbilt handled it better than them. And going to Vanderbilt's house, Memorial Arena, that ain't easy to do. Vanderbilt has knocked off Tennessee in that building. They've knocked off Mississippi, or they did not knock off Mississippi State. What am I saying? They knocked off Kentucky. Gave Vanderbilt a push, or Auburn a push at home, but Auburn pulled away late. They're a tough team, and I think now getting that A&M win for them maybe they pull their foot off the gas a little bit because I think now everybody agrees they're solidly in. But going on the road there is not going to be easy for Mizzou. Let me pull up the stats from the first one. I know Jason Edwards had a great game as he has had against everyone this year. He had 20 points in that one. Devin McLaughlin is a huge contributor for them. They have AJ Hoggard as well. A lot of college basketball fans will recognize that name. Didn't play well against Mizzou the first time, but still a very solid player. So this one is absolutely monumental because, like I said, Mizzou wins out. They're a double bye team. You want to play as few games in the SEC tournament against these types of teams, just this physical, really, really athletic league. You want to play as few games there as possible. So getting the double bye would be huge. If you go 3-0, you're also probably looking at a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament, which is the one everyone cares about, obviously. So this, like you said, can't downplay the importance of this one on Saturday.
I think, too, with that double bye, is that especially this year in the SEC, it is the best basketball conference. But at the same time, there's a lot of teams that can beat each other. And I think if you get that first bye and you don't get the second one and you get, punched in the mouth right away, I feel like that's a little bit of a sour feeling when you're getting knocked out right away when you had an opportunity to kind of hold on, rest your guys a little bit more and take that double bye. This game, though, is at 5 p.m. on SEC Network. It's a little bit small for my eyes, but 5 p.m. on SEC Network this Saturday on the road against Vanderbilt. Thank you, Payton. But with this game too, look, you mentioned there 3 games left on the schedule. Vanderbilt, then at Oklahoma, midweek game, and then next Saturday, the last the last regular season game against Kentucky. You mentioned you want Mizzou to go 3-0. Realistically, in your head, when you're looking at this and you're being honest with yourself, how do you see the Tigers finishing the season?
I'd love to be able to say 3-0, but I've had this Vandy game I've been leery of it for a long time now. I think Vanderbilt's a really solid team. They're hard to beat at home, and Mizzou has obviously been hard to beat at home as well, but Vanderbilt has also turned kind of Nashville into a home court advantage for them. So I still think more realistically 2-1, because maybe if you beat Vanderbilt, Kentucky is still, if they catch fire, they're really tough to beat. Oklahoma's going to be a win. I really would not even, I would be so floored if they somehow find a way to lose to Oklahoma at this point. Oklahoma looks like a team that's just about done. But Vanderbilt, really, really, really tough on the road. Kentucky at home, 11 a.m. start too, by the way. Did not know that. But that's an interesting one. I'm still going to say 2-1.
ESPN won, but ESPN also.
Yeah, and if you go 2-1, there's still a really good chance you get a double bye because of, like I said, the top 4 teams are like Auburn's going to be the 1 seed. Florida has to play Texas A&M and Alabama. Alabama has to play Tennessee and Auburn. I think one of them has to play Auburn as well. I think Tennessee or Florida also has to play Auburn again. I'd have to look at the schedule again, but it's a madhouse at the top. So 2-1 has to be a minimum. I still think you give yourself a really good chance to be that double bye team. But it's easier to just go ahead and handle your own business, control your own destiny, and get the double bye that way.
What happens in a world where Mizzou beats Vanderbilt? There's a high after that win, big win on the road, emphatic victory. Walk into Oklahoma, and Oklahoma figures out Mark Mitchell. Lose that game, respond against Kentucky. I mean, how angry would you be, Payton?
Well, I'd be pretty disappointed if they go in and beat Vanderbilt and then lay an egg against Oklahoma. That would just fly in the face of pretty much everything I think we've seen from this team. They've seemed to kind of do a good job of putting one foot in front of the other and not way too heavily on the last game. Maybe the only exception you can point out is after that emotional Alabama win, going and losing at Arkansas, a team I really think Missouri is a lot better than. That would be the one exception maybe, but if they were to beat Vanderbilt and go on the road to Oklahoma and lose that one, that puts a whole hell of a lot of pressure on them to win against Kentucky. You do not want to go into the SEC tournament on a 2-game losing streak when you had pretty much the world in your hands. Because then you're starting to get into, well, what if they lose that? They would probably most likely, if they lose to Oklahoma, I would have to think you're probably the vibes would be so terrible. I wouldn't think you have much of a chance in the SEC tournament. So then you go into the NCAA tournament potentially just on a cold streak. That's the last thing you want to be doing.
I'm going to use Peyton's vocab here again. This is the penultimate away game for Missouri. Penultimate away game for the Tigers for the regular season at Vanderbilt again, 5 p.m. SEC Network this Saturday on the road. Peyton, 2 quick hitters, though, for Missouri basketball. Dennis Gates had a press conference today, recording here on Thursday night. So the 2 biggest things that came out of it, Trent Butler was taking shots. He was, finally... Trent Burns finally taking shots, before the game, looking active. Didn't get into that one. Hasn't played in a single game all season. Opportunity for him to redshirt. Heard a lot of positives about Trent Burns coming into the year. He went on the show with us at 1.2. I know your take on this. You don't want Trent Burns to play the remainder of the season. You don't really know how you'd face, off against SEC player, just tournament teams, just because he hasn't played an actual college basketball game other than some scrimmages at the beginning of the year. But in your mind, Peyton, is there a world where Dennis Gates and his staff put Trent Burns on the floor this season?
Oh, there's a world where they do it. Absolutely. I will never, ever, ever say there isn't a world where Dennis Gates will not put someone in when we least expect it. But yeah, I just think at this point, you're too late in the season to incorporate Trent Burns properly, really. And it's no disrespect to Trent Burns. The coaching staff clearly loves him. I think they've called him I think Rob Summers, the big man assistant coach, called him a unicorn. And the pregame shoot around videos are very intriguing, but we're at a point where the next game is literally occurring in the month of March. There's 3 regular season games left. Then you have the SEC tournament. Then it's showtime. I don't think that's enough time to properly incorporate a true freshman who has not played a second of basketball this year and has been dealing with injury. I don't think you can do that. I think and look, if he's truly all world and like he forces the issue, I guess so be it. Especially looking at someone like Peyton Marshall, who is just clearly not ready right now. Maybe he could take whatever spot minutes Marshall sometimes gets. I think you're just better off holding Trent Burns for next year, though.
Yeah, that's where my mind went. I'm glad you mentioned that. I think it really kind of comes down to if you think you can't trust Peyton Marshall in big moments and you can't keep Josh Gray on the floor for as long as you can against maybe a team with a little bit more size and you need a force to rebound, maybe it really comes down to just to get another big guy on the floor. But what we've kind of heard from Trent Burns is that he can stretch the floor. He's not just a big guy that can rebound; he can shoot as well. So really, I think it's contrasting types of players too. So you can't really compare the two and say if Peyton Marshall can't be in the paint, then you put Trent Burns. But different types of players, different types of schemes, different types of formations you're going to run out there with a lot of these guys. So I think it does behoove Missouri to keep him off the floor for the rest of the year. You're smiling now because I use that word.
Are we in a word battle right now, Kenny?
We are in a word battle. I don't want to get into a word battle with you, though, Peyton. You are the word bank. I got one more for you. It's a guy that's currently on the roster, and this came up in the press conference today. There's like my two biggest notes that I took just from reading about the press conference and kind of reading the updates from it. But that's what Jacob Cruz. Everyone knows that a lot of these JUCO athletes are getting another year of eligibility with the new ruling from the NCAA. There's an opportunity for him to come back again next year to Missouri. Dennis Gates said it would be a conversation to have in the offseason, not really something you want to worry about right now. Worry about the games ahead of you. You don't know what this roster is going to look like. There's guys on this team, even like Anthony Robinson, of course, playing a different position than Jacob Cruz, getting looks at the NBA. Maybe there's other guys on the roster getting looks as well. Some guy's going to run out of eligibility. In your mind, Peyton, is he a guy that you want back on the roster? And of course, you don't know who Mizzou is going to get in the transfer portal. But from what you've seen and what you've mentioned about him being a good spark off the bench, would he be a guy you want back next year?
Honestly, I think I'm at a point where I would probably be pretty okay with him coming back next year because you look at the roster as is. I mean, you're losing Tamar Bates. You're losing Caleb Grill. I mean, I would expect, even though I don't really think it'll wind up ending with him staying in the draft, I would expect Ant to at least go through the whole maintaining your eligibility but testing the draft waters sequence. I expect him to do that. So that's a lot of shooting you're potentially losing. So, and he's been a lot better as of late. So I think I would be okay with Jacob Cruz coming back. And again, we got to see how the rest of the year goes. Dennis Gates said it best. He'll talk about it after the season. But sure, I could see a world where I'm pretty okay with Jacob Cruz coming back next year.
Would he wear tiger stripes into the College Basketball Hall of Fame?
I think that's likely, considering the other options are North Florida and UT Martin.
That's a good take on that. Peyton, before we get to quick hits, we have a quick hit just about women's basketball. And there's writing on the wall about this, but Robin Pingeton will step away from the women's basketball program at the end of the year. You were on this beat not too long ago, 2 seasons ago. The writing was on the wall for a little bit, just on, what the future held, possibility of her getting, fired last year, dismissed from the program, just kind of looking forward to someone else, moving forward to someone else. In your mind, Peyton, I mean, did this come at the right time? And we get into the financials about it. There's a lot to that, but at the same time, it was just an opportunity for the women's basketball program to move in a different direction.
Yeah, I mean, I was on the beat a couple of years ago. I mean, this was an issue when I was on the beat. Even like people were wondering if Pingeton would be around after another NIT appearance for them. It really kind of bottomed out these last 2 years. And, last year, I think everyone kind of expected it. I think it probably would have happened last year, Pingeton moving on, had there not been the AD change when it happened. By the time Laird Veach was hired, it was way too late in the process to really make a real decision on that. Robin Pingeton, I mean, by all accounts, everyone is a big fan of hers. Everyone thought she represented the university very well. Just didn't have enough wins by the end. I think a big problem for a lot of her post Cunningham tenure was just players not really developing, and that's on the program as a coach for not developing some players. But I mean, there were a lot of highly touted recruits that just didn't really pan out. Jayla Kelly's the one that always kind of pops into my mind. There are intriguing players around still. I think Shrek is an SEC player. Ashton Judd looks great at times. Slaughter has been a very promising young player. But overall, just not enough talent on the roster this year. They've competed in pretty much every game they've played, just don't have the horses to get them to the finish line. And I know a lot of people question, like, why would anyone come and take this job? They clearly don't have the financial backing. I would push back on that a little bit, because you could have asked a pretty similar thing about the men's basketball program a couple of years ago. Why would anyone take this job? It's in the SEC. It's very clearly, like, as far as resources go, not as with the rest of the conference as others. It's still an SEC job. The SEC in women's college basketball is pretty damn good. So I think they still will have their pick of the litter when it's all said and done.
And you and Jack will get into that more on Monday's show. I'm not going to tell everyone who the guest is, but be excited. There is someone coming on that knows her basketball well, knows women's basketball well, knows Missouri women's basketball very well. She'll come on, talk about some hot boards, some names that you should know. And there's probably some names out there that a lot of fans know, but she will get into the nitty gritty about who you should know for Missouri women's basketball moving forward. But that's it for Robin Pingeton. She does have family. I mean, her son is at Tolton. He's a senior there. But this season, the Tigers are 2-12 in SEC play, currently playing right now at Arkansas as we're recording this. And her final game at Mizzou Arena will be this weekend on Sunday against Vanderbilt at 2 p.m. But that's 13-16 currently on the year. That number will change by the time we're done recording. But that's Robin Pingeton's tenure with the Missouri Tigers. And Payton and Jack will handle some more discussions about that in Monday's show. But until then, we will end the show with quick hits. Quick hits time. We started off with my quick hit here. My jersey of the week goes to Cody Schrader. Payton, you mentioned it earlier. He's always back. He's from St. Louis, from the state, but he's back hanging out with the Mizzou Tigers, doing some practices. They're not in pads right now, just a lot of conditioning, running around, weightlifting. But he's in some Mizzou garb, but he's also in some Chargers garb. But good to see Cody Schrader back with the guys.
That's you meant Rams garb. I was like,
Rams, excuse me.
Like, why would he be in Chargers garb?
You got traded, you didn't see?
Yeah. Drop best captions below. I think Drink is probably asking Cody about the one time he was 1 yard short against Georgia, and if he remembers Mitchell Walters taking the false start right after. Anyways, let's move on. My jersey of the week is going to be a former teammate of Cody Schrader, his right guard, Cameron Johnson. I have no idea what the college football ultimate team is up to, man. Just Mizzou card after Mizzou card, and now another one I have to go get in Cameron Johnson. He got a 97 overall scheme spotlight card. Unbelievable. That will be my new starting right guard.
Marcus Bryant has to be the most hurt player ever. Feelings wise, not physically. He's the only one that hasn't received a special card yet from this game.
Yep. Caden Green got one. Connor Tollison is currently my center, and Armand Membu is one of the highest rated right tackles in the game. So Marcus Bryant, you're up next.
Maybe do a flashback card. Give him one when he's from his time at SMU. Moving
on.
They
should get a Hiron White Mizzou card in exchange.
Jack's jersey of the week goes to this fella who's wearing you gotta be watching on the YouTube to see it, but he was wearing a horse mask, got the old retro Mizzou basketball jersey. You can tell there with the starter logo on that shoulder, but good look there with the horse mask, supporting Josh Gray.
Yeah, Mizzou is really, I think Mizzou fans in general have kind of embraced Josh Gray. Josh Gray replied to it with just him as a horse sitting down. Well, not him as a horse, but like a horse sitting down.
He's in the costume.
Yeah, of course. So
I like no cap, and he's the main bird.
Shawnee's main bird of the week. Kenny, what's your main bird?
Max Scherzer back at it again on the show, getting a shout out. Not a fan of robot umpires. He said, "Can we just be judged by humans?" He also added in there, "We are humans. Why can't we just be judged by them?" Of course, Major League Baseball is testing out the automatic balls and strikes for the Major League teams right now. It has been in AAA for the past 2 years, but opportunity here for them to test it out a little bit more with these major leaguers. But the old vet is not excited about it. Shout out St. Louis and Parkway Central.
I'm kind of with Max here. I don't really look, it's better than just robo umps in general, which is what I thought we were heading towards. It's a nice compromise, but you can hate on it all you want. I kind of love just human umpires that miss calls, because sometimes it hurts your team, sometimes but it typically evens out. A lot of times it'll help your team. So also, Max still looks like a psycho. Look at his face in this photo. He looks furious.
He's mad. They call him mad for
Mad Max. Moving on, we're going to stick with Mizzou baseball. I am going to go with current Mizzou baseball, Brady Picarelli, a true freshman for Missouri. He is the first Mizzou batter with 5 hits in a single game since 2018. He did this in Mizzou's home opener against Lindenwood the other day. It turned out to be a 14-10 win over the Lions. If you're looking for a bird connection, Kenny told me the Lindenwood crest has a lion with wings, so that's close enough.
You fell for that?
Well, I don't know what else I would have made.
No, I'm serious. That is actually on the Lindenwood crest. I wanted to see if you'd be mad, but man, you get games against non-conference teams. Baseball can just be a wash sometimes. You never really know if maybe some of these blood donors are gonna score a lot of runs and you're going to face just a beat up pitcher. I'm a little bit surprised that it took that long for another 5-hit game. I know you have to get around. You can't be subbed out, but there are opportunities where you're just facing some weak arms. And in college baseball, you see it, especially early on. Some guys get up to 20 runs, and Payton's going to give you a little shout out here to Tyler Macon, who moved on from football to play some baseball for the Missouri Tigers. Different Tyler Macon, but it is very funny. I think that should be talked about more. There should be a story written about this guy. That was a different Tyler Macon.
That'd be like a 200-word story. Hey, your name is Tyler Macon. There used to be a quarterback with that name. Yup.
Hey, Payton, long time listener, first time caller. During the off season, do all the Tyler Macons get together and maybe have lunch?
That amazing clip. Man, think about that. Carrick Jackson must have been a big fan of the 2022 Mizzou QB battle, recruiting a Brady and a Tyler Macon.
Yeah, the QB battle that lasted maybe like a couple weeks in camp. Never really got brought up again.
Dude, Tyler Macon had a chance. Anyways, moving on.
Jack's main bird of the week. This is kind of a stretch, and we'll just give it to him because he's not here and he's enjoying a day off. But he's going to give it to Anthony Robinson, who was mentioned on this draft board at The Athletic. We're going to keep it behind the paywall, not really show you too much of it, just for Sam's work here, Sam Bassini at The Athletic. I've seen his name, thrown around a lot. I think he's kind of risen the ranks. Just in college basketball reporting and draft coverage, but he's got Anthony Robinson on that top 100. Payton, we talked about it a little bit in the basketball segment. I mean, what are the odds in your mind right now, Anthony Robinson not being a part of this team next year because he's dunking on LeBron in LA?
Look, I'm not a scout or anything. I would still think that Ant would probably benefit from another year at Missouri, but it's really cool to see that he kind of is getting that buzz, and it's good for Mizzou. And I mean, I do know that Ant is kind of like prototypical NBA size for a guard. At 6'5", I think he is. Like that's like a good NBA guard size. And look, his play style, I mean, he's a really pesky defender. He's actually shown like his offensive growth this year has been kind of unprecedented. Like, I don't know that I've really seen a Mizzou player get this much better this quickly. I know Kobe Brown, of course, did kind of the classic college development where he went from kind of like up and down freshman to good role player to all SEC player to a draft pick. Ant Robinson has kind of blown past a lot of that already in year 2. So I wouldn't be too worried yet until someone really throws him into like those first round combos. But it's a good sign for Mizzou. And hopefully with another year at Mizzou, he could really kind of become like a bona fide like draft pick.
The one thing I took from this, and this is because I spend a lot more time around baseball and football, I don't understand maybe the top 100. There's only 59 picks this season in the NBA draft, which really kind of makes you think that there are a lot of other guys that might be just right on the bubble of being considered signed or drafted. Because when you look at a top 100 in football and baseball, the only reason maybe some of those guys in baseball don't sign is because of money, and they're just going to go back to college or go to college for the first time. So it is kind of like an interesting, take and look at it, that there are 100 guys that could be drafted. But a lot of them probably just choose to stay at college, just development wise, and realize they're not really going to get very far if they go to the NBA right now.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be too worried about this yet. It doesn't seem like Ant is like a really like he hasn't really exploded, but he is kind of creeping into a couple of these draft boards. And Ant's a guy that will probably do the whole, I mentioned it earlier, like just do the keep your eligibility, but like test the draft waters, get some feedback. We will have to just wait and see how that goes for him. I'd imagine it'll go very well for someone like him, better than it would for someone like Xavier Pinson. But we'll just have to see.
He'll be a South Bay Laker at some point. It's just kind of destiny for a lot of Missouri guards these days. Moving on, best thing we learned this week, Payton.
Best thing I learned this week, Mizzou announced every date of their spring practices and their 2 scrimmages. It's really important info because none of us get to watch any of them because they also canceled their spring game for 2025 and 2026. Of course, that was kind of to be expected. There's stadium renovations, and that's just kind of the direction college football is moving in general. I think it's the most paranoid, ridiculous thing in the world to think that you're going to have a guy go from unheard of to suddenly poached because he played well in a 2-hand touch exhibition game. But to each their own. We kind of had a long discussion about this last week, so I don't care to rehash it. I kind of hate the way spring ball is treated around the country now.
Yeah, it's a perfect time to have these stadium renovations. You don't get lumped into what Nebraska might be doing and some other schools that have taken headlines for canceling or moving spring games and not really focusing on them anymore for certain reasons. This is a perfect time. Eli Drinkwitz has, been in that camp of not really wanting to make it a big deal and put it on TV. And he actually had one when it was really cold outside a couple years ago where they just had it indoors our senior year in 2023, just kind of hiding it from the people, but that also was a weather reason. My other thing, and by the time the renovations are done in 2027, spring games might not be a thing anymore, especially at the SEC level. So kind of just perfect timing for Missouri. If they want to take that course of action, they're just kind of getting ahead of it now and just worrying more just about not having people around in a live construction zone, which is also just a safety reason. And the primary reason that Mizzou is saying in this instance. The one thing I will point out just about this spring training schedule, it's not spring training, spring ball. I guess it's also training, but spring ball schedule. This has been posted like a handful of times just by recruits. The only 2 days that are extra on there is February 28th, which is this Friday, and then March 1st. So spring ball does begin once this goes live. But those 2 days are in the NCAA dead period, so they just remove those. It's literally the same graphic that they're sending recruits. They just tacked on the 2 days that recruits aren't allowed to visit.
Yeah. And like just going back to your points about the spring game, it's a very convenient excuse for them that I'm sure they're happy to use with the stadium construction. I don't think Missouri was going to have a spring game if their stadium renovations were not happening in general. I think we have probably seen the last Missouri spring game.
Well, that's probably going to do it. We don't really need to talk too much more about spring games moving forward. That might be the last time we ever talk about spring games, just on here until
really might be until they just officially announce that they're never doing one again.
They might be in a point in 2 years where they don't even the Missouri doesn't even need to announce that it won't be having a spring game. Maybe that's the course. That's the path of college football where an announcement doesn't even need to be made. So rest in peace, spring games. This might be the last time we talk about you, but maybe in 2 years, if we're still doing this, if we're still kicking, maybe we'll get to talk about a spring game then. But moving on.
We won't. Moving on.
Best thing I learned this week. We talked about it before. The 4 guys for Missouri going to the NFL Combine: Theo Weiss Jr., Brady Cook, Armin Membu, and Luther Burden III. But that officially kicked off this week here on Wednesday and Thursday with a lot of more interviews going on. You're seeing it more on Twitter with a lot of these players and staffers and more NFL guys being around these 4. We talked about it. Johnny Walker maybe being a snub from this conversation. Maybe expected him over Brady in this one, but those 4 are there and they're competing throughout the weekend and be like their kind of last look before they have pro day the day after spring ball ends. And all 4 of them will be there.
Yeah, March 1st for QBs and receivers, March 2nd for O-line. So Armand will go March 2nd. Brady, Luther, and Theo will go March 1st. Luther's got a lot, this is a big combine for him because unfortunately, mock drafts are starting to not be too kind for him, so he could really stand to test well and boost his stock.
Yeah, that's the last kind of look for them in front of NFL scouts before they're all back together, and plus some other guys like Johnny Walker and some other ones will be together in Columbia right after spring ball ends. So I guess we still talked about that spring game, brought it up again, or lack of. But what did Jack learn this week?
Best thing Jack learned this week is probably just essentially that March is here. It's almost a quasi headline. Maybe he got his things confused. He sent an ESPN article. Holloman's half-court heave lifts Michigan State over Maryland. Trey Holloman hit like a crazy. Go find it on X, the Everything app, or just Facebook, whatever you people are using nowadays. Trey Holloman, just a crazy buzzer beater. Michigan State survived an upset bid over Maryland with just a nasty half court heave. It's a March shot. And it happened in February, but it's a good sign. I mean, March will be right around is just literally 24 hours away by the time you're listening to this. So good way to kick the month off.
January, February.
Izzo.
Thank you. Yeah, I forgot. I always forget what the 3rd month is.
Yeah, it's Izzo.
Tournament's almost here, Payton. Excited?
It is. I'm not excited. I'm nervous, Kenny.
Yeah. You just opened your arm. I can see you're sweating like crazy. You pulled your arm above your head right there.
Not
you're drenched
sweating.
in that shirt.
Don't lie to people.
Speaking of jokes, that was a good joke I just
cacophonous.
made there. Payton, you have a joke to finish us off.
No, because I got to find one because I was doing the screen sharing today. Because something about your computer. Just kidding. I have one. Hey, Kenny, this one comes from our favorite TV series, The Today Show, by the way.
Your favorite TV series? Jack is not here.
Our favorite TV series. The Unwritten Rules favorite TV series. Shout out NBC and Lester Holt, by the way. He's leaving Nightly News. Kenny.
No way.
You didn't see that? Yeah.
No.
Lester Holt is leaving Nightly News.
For what?
He's going to do Dateline more, I believe.
Okay.
Kenny, what's a zebra? A couple sizes bigger than an A. I'm going to find another one. That one sucked.
Oh, man. This is great podcasting. Thank you, Peyton Haverman, for the joke of the week. I think we should just go out on that one. I think the joke.
What do you call a man wearing a rug on his head? Matt.
Okay,
that's
better.
A good
one. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't have time to read it. I had to share the screen today.
No, yeah, it's good. I we'll see what Jack thinks if he ever listens to the show. But Jack will be back on this weekend. I will not be here, but Jack and Peyton will hold it down, give you some more looks after that Vanderbilt game, and then a deeper investigation of where Mizzou women's basketball could be moving forward with its next head coach. But until then, hope you enjoy the rest of the weekend. I've been solo screened, which means I need to get out of here. Everybody enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the Mizzou men's basketball game against Vanderbilt, and we will see you in March.